My name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video. And in this video, I want to cover why do people communicate with their exes while in a new relationship? So I think this is a really powerful topic to cover and a huge point of discussion that comes up so often when people enter into relationships and then find out that their partner is talking to their ex still. And of course, the context will matter. And of course, the attachment style will matter. But there are really powerful things you can do in terms of how you facilitate conversation, communication, and boundaries in order to make sure that this doesn't have to be something that terrorizes your new relationship if you find out that this is taking place. And so the very first thing to recognize is different attachment styles do tend to keep in touch with their exes for different reasons. And it can be, was this a 3-month relationship? Was this a 12-year relationship? Obviously, those things matter as well. But as a general rule, there are common patterns amongst all attachment styles that show up. One of the first common patterns is that there's a sense of comfort and security from the familiarity of an ex. And sometimes if somebody's not getting their needs met in a current relationship, that can also be a huge secondary factor. Okay, so let's just break those. There's actually some other ones too, but let's just break down the first two. So comfort, security, and familiarity with an ex. Well, the first thing you need to know is your subconscious mind is wired for familiarity. It always wants the familiar. So sometimes when we leave an old relationship and get into a new relationship, the subconscious mind will just try to hang on to that connection in some form. And that's not necessarily this really bad thing, but what the boundaries are that are established around it, the frequency of communication, the depth of communication, the intimacy involved in that communication. Are you seeing the ex in person all the time? I mean, those things are going to be the real deciding factors as to whether this is a healthy or unhealthy connection. And these are really important things to discuss, but we'll cover those at the end. The second thing is if somebody has, so we're wired to be pulled towards that comfort, familiarity, right? And the subconscious mind does not like to let go of things. It tries to hold on to that familiarity because we try to attach to things that we associate with, hey, we survived during that time, so we're going to continue to survive. So there's this natural wiring that's there as point one. Point number two is we can also get into a position where when we have an unmet need, the subconscious mind seeks the most recent forms. The mind's also an association making machine at the subconscious level. So whatever we associate with that need, the mind will go to as a means of getting that need met. So for example, let's say I'm in a new relationship, okay? And let's pretend it's this relationship with somebody who's very adult and serious and responsible and shows up and we've got great communication and all these things. But let's pretend I was in an old relationship where it was all about fun and being carefree. And let's say I haven't realized at a conscious level that I'm not getting that need met in my more adult, serious relationship. And let's say there was a short period of time in between, okay? And maybe overall, I really prefer this relationship. But, and obviously the other relationship didn't work for a reason, right? But if the mind is not getting a need, imagine that need is like a bucket. If it's not getting it filled, my subconscious mind might start thinking about and reminiscing about an ex, because it's not really about the ex, but it's about the need that that subconscious mind associates with the ex. Because remember, the mind is an association making machine. So what can take place is I may start thinking about those fun times, those things. And what's really interesting is that what your fantasies are about or what you're reminiscing about is going to be there. So then my mind, let's pretend in this, theoretical situation, that my mind then reaches out to this ex because it's really trying to reach out to that need. And it's really interesting how this works. I've had many, many conversations with people over the years who have been in this position. And then I'm like, oh, it's actually, what are the memories about? What are you hoping to get from the situation of reaching out? And it's like, oh, well, I just miss the fun times, or I just miss the whatever it is. And it's like, oh, how much are you getting that need met in your life now? And somebody's like, oh, hardly at all. And it's like, well, then just go communicate to your current partner that you guys need to do more of that. And the problem gets solved. So it's another huge reason people reach out to the ex. And the third one, and it's actually it's sort of under the same category as number two. The third one is that sometimes people need attention or validation and they're not getting it. And so when they feel vulnerable or needy for some of that, sometimes they'll reach out to, again, this source of this need from a past person, right? This source of, part of its comfort, part of its familiarity. It kind of goes hand in hand with 1 and 2. But part of it is also just a need itself. And that sort of falls into its own category, right? It's not a general need, but it's like attention, approval, validation. So that can be a big one. And number 4, people will sometimes also reach out to an ex as a means to protect themselves from fully investing and feeling too vulnerable to a current partner in the now. And this often happens for more avoidant attachment styles, when their walls are being pushed on, or when they feel like they're really falling for somebody too quickly. And so that can be a huge source of why this takes place. Now, there are other reasons, probably a little too long for a single video. But if you want to learn about what to do, I'm going to take you through a few steps here as well. So those are the most common ones, or some of the most common ones for sure. Now, what to do is have boundaries in terms of your communication. We have a whole course, 7-day free trial that you can check out, again, for free, all about boundaries. And it can be very valuable in this specific situation. You can use the link below if you want to check it out. But what you want to find boundaries around more specifically here are, if you sort of at a high level, you want to have a discussion about, like, how often are you talking? What's appropriate and not appropriate? What's the depth of communication? I mean, are you FaceTiming? Are you getting on like Zoom chats and seeing each other? Are you spending time in person? Are you talking once a week? Are you talking every day? Are you talking once every year to check in? I mean, there's some big differences here that have a huge impact. And, what is the content involved in those conversations? Is it romantic? Are you talking about feelings? Do you say you miss the person? Or are you just saying, hey, how's life? How's your family? How are things? And sort of doing a check-in. Like, all of these things will play a huge role. And so these are the things that have to be discussed. And what you have to do is, if you're the person watching this video because you're going through this with an ex, you have to actually start by taking yourself and your needs into consideration, and then developing boundaries according to that. So, let's say let's say your current relationship has an ex of 10 years, and let's say they also dated 7 years ago. That's a long relationship, and maybe they stayed friends since, maybe they were friends before. I mean, all these things will play a fundamental role. But what you might want to do is go, okay, well, what feels okay? Like, considering all of that, what feels appropriate? Is it to have, like, hey, I get that person was a big part of your life. Can you have high level conversations, like once a month tops? And can we park it at that? And can I be included sometimes? And do you share about our relationship? And can you make sure that that's normalized? And so that really puts that ex in the friend category. You talk to that ex just like you would a friend. These are the types of things that would have to be dialogued out in more detail. So, again, the content, the frequency, the intimacy involved in the conversations, whether it's, what types of conversations they're having, or how you're seeing the person, how often these people meet up together. Do they spend time alone? Do they go out for dinner and drinks regularly? I mean, there's all this sort of gray area that has to be discussed. You have to find yourself in your space of, like, what feels okay for you. Then that needs to be communicated to a partner accordingly, and boundaries have to be established around this to make it a healthy ability to sort of have this come up. So I hope this makes sense. Again, you can check out the boundaries course for free for 7 days. It will really help you understand your boundaries, how to consider yourself, how to move through fears of setting boundaries if you have them. And thank you so much for watching this today. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video.